Welcome back to Duels Down Under, where you can find deck profiles, pack openings, live dueling action, and discussion videos just like this one. In today's video, I'm going to tell you what I think the January 2020 ban list should look like. I hope you're taking notes, Konami. We're expecting something big. If you remember a couple of videos ago, I said I'd be doing an awesome giveaway for the 50 subscribers. We've hit that mark and I can't thank you enough for the continued support. Please, please, please keep sharing the videos. Keep telling your mates to sub to the channel. I'll be doing another giveaway once we get to 100. But please stay tuned till the end of the video for the details of this giveaway. Before I get into the ban list though, I do want to give a huge shout out to the guys over at Yu-Gi-Oh! Community Auctions on Facebook. One of the best auction sites, if not the best auction site for Australian Yu-Gi-Oh! Fans. There are always some good deals, the admins in the group are fantastic, and there are some fantastic bargains going up every single day of the week. If you haven't already become a member, go and answer the questions, go and start bidding and help the guys out. They are my #1 recommended auction site. Don't forget to tell them I sent you. First of all, we're going to hit those banned cards. There are 3 on my list. The first one is Sky Striker Hornet Drones. We know Sky Strikers are still getting support, so Konami cannot nerf the deck too much. But with the new card coming out, the necessity for drones to be in the Sky Striker deck alone isn't that great. It's important that the Sky Striker strategy is playable within its own archetype, but by banning drones, I think it's going to make the engine less splashable. Let's face it, we know that 1 Hornet Drones or an Engage can get you a Link 2 monster just like that. So let's not beat around the bush. Let's take drones out of the game to try and make it a little bit more fair. The second card that I'd like to see taken, or put onto the ban list and taken out of the game, is Tempest Magician. FTK decks aren't appreciated in the game. Everyone likes to play an interactive game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And some of the strategies at the moment, they're probably not as interactive as we'd like them to be. But an FTK deck like the Danger Dark World FTK, or what we can see now with the Tempest Magician FTK, it's got to go out of the game because it's just not fun to play against. And we know Yu-Gi-Oh! Is all about having fun. The final card that I would like to see hit, unfortunately, is my beloved Orchestrated Babel. Probably one of the best field spells ever printed, ever created, allowing you to work through your monster effects from the graveyard in your opponent's turn is actually quite busted. We need to see that gone. Yu-Gi-Oh! Should be a game that's played when you can respond during your opponent's turn, but not give yourself an extra turn during your opponent's turn. There is disruption, and then there's just disgusting mechanics, just like Orchestrated Babel. It's time to see it go. I don't think it'll affect Orcus too much if that's the only thing we hit, but as you're going to see in the limited list, that's not all we have. I hope you're comfortable because the limited list that I've created is quite extensive. There are quite a few cards going to 1, and I'd like to see quite a few cards come back to 1. This is my favourite part of the list because I do think it's where Konami can do a little bit of experimentation without breaking the game too much. So we're going to start with the cards that are currently at 2 or 3, and we're going to move them up the list to make them limited. The first card that I have is Orcus, or Galatea, the Orcus Automaton. Pretty busted Link 2. It's so easy to go into it. What it gains you from a set card and being able to recycle some of your banished resources is pretty busted. But by making only 1 copy of Galatea available in the extra deck, it's really going to make you consider what you are going to bring back with Symbol Skeleton. Once that copy of Galatea is banned, you need to try and use your Longirsu or the World Wand to summon it back to your side of the field. And that's actually stopping you from going absolutely insane with the rest of those plays. It's going to make the Boral Sword OTK a little less prevalent to make that second Galatea to simply overlay with the Dingirsu. So that's my first limitation. The second one is Thunder Dragon Colossus. I think it's time. Moving forward, I don't want to talk too much about the new Master Rule, but if we do look forward a little bit, we don't want to see 3 Colossuses spat out on the board on the first turn of every Thunder Dragon player's game. What we want to see is we want to be able to remove it quite easily, but we still want the Thunder Dragon players to be able to utilize the strategy to slow down their opponent's searching ability. I think that taking Colossus to 1 will open up some extra deck slots for them to play some other types of strategy as well, while not oppressing the opponent too much that they can't do anything with their own deck during their own turns. The third card I have is Mystic Mine. It's about time it has to go. I don't think it should ban it. There are some die-hard burn players out there, and I don't want to stop them from playing decks that they love. What we do need to see is the card taken up the list and moved to 1. Once it's gone, but it still needs to be there, and it still should be searchable through cards like Terraforming, Demise of the Land, and of course Metaverse. The next card on the list is Orcus Nightmare. Going along with the Galatea hit and the Babel hit, Nightmare is the card that gets all of the resources in the graveyard. There's a reason Foolish Burial's at 1. There's a reason Lavarval Chain is still on the ban list. Filling up the graveyard is pretty much like putting more cards in your hand. It's pretty much free every single time, and it's great ash bait as well if you need it to be. It's one of those cards that it's got so many uses. It's great to discard, to get into the graveyard, and once it's there, it's pretty much all over. The Orcus combo starts from there. So it's got to go to 1 as well. And the only meta deck that I haven't really talked about just yet, Salamangreat. If all of those other hits go through, I think Salamangreat does need to be leveled out a little bit. I was tossing up between Salamangreat Spinny and Salamangreat Foxy, but in this case, I think it has to be Spinny. With the ability to bring it back from the graveyard, even though it does get banished when it leaves the field, we do know that the Spinny does like to go underneath Mirage Stallion as a material, and I do think that sending it back to the graveyard for constant recurrence is one of the things that needs to stop, just to slow the strategy down a little bit. Now that's all the cards that I have going from 3 to 1. Now, there are a few things that I would like to see come back. Don't hate on me. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think the game would be too busted if some of the cards came back? Let me know. I want to know what you think. So the first card I want to see back is Harpy's Feather Duster. It's about time that we see this card once again. I am a huge Harpy fan, so any card with Harpy in the name should be in the game all the time. But we know the OCG have had this card for such a long time, and it doesn't seem to be too broken over there. It has been announced in the OCG version of the Shadow Structure deck, so hopefully, all things going right, that the reprint will get confirmed for the TCG, meaning that we might see Harpy's Feather Duster off the list once again. The same can be said for Pot of Avarice. It's a great card, it's recyclable, it does let you draw a couple of cards after you recycle some cards from your graveyard as well. What the downside is that graveyard decks are so prevalent in the game that maybe there aren't enough resources there to shuffle back. So Pot of Avarice probably wouldn't be played in every single deck, but it would be good for those decks that don't rely on the graveyard too heavily. Again, with its reprint announced in the OCG version of the Shadow Structure deck, I think that now's a prime time for the Konami to let it come back into the TCG. Let's play it for a format and we'll see how it goes. We know that Tempest has come back off the list and it hasn't seen a lot of play. It's not the greatest of the Dragon Rulers, but it is still a pretty good card. That's why I'd like to see Tidal come back. For a couple of reasons, so please hear me out. Water is getting some new support through the new Deep Sea Diva archetype. I think that if Tidal came back, it's going to allow some support. For that, give it a little bit of a boost in power. The same can be said for the Marincess deck that doesn't seem to be doing a lot in the meta just yet. It needs that extra boost, so maybe Tidal would be the card to get it from that tier 2 to maybe a tier 1.5 status. It's not going to break the deck, but it's going to be used to make those strategies maybe extend a little bit further and give them that little bit of a power boost that they need to push up into that next half a tier. It's time for Denglong to come off the list. I didn't play dang long when it was in the format, but I think the game is sped up so much that I don't think it's going to be such a damaging card. It's time to come off the list. Let's bring it back to 1. Zodiac Trident. Let's copy the OCG. Let's bring it back and see what it can do. I was talking to some mates at my locals the other day and we were discussing what the engine would look like. We know the Senka archetype is coming out pretty soon in the TCG. Could you imagine the Beast Warriors like that? Maybe coupled with some Zodiac cards to help spur the engine along. It's probably 6 to 8 cards in your main deck, maybe 3 or 4 cards in the extra deck, and it's going to pretty much help you along and give you that little bit of removal. Moving into Master Rule 5, I also think that there's room there for Dryden to help most decks with a little bit of spot removal as well. Long time ban Tribe Infecting Virus. It's not doing anything. Let's bring it back. Bring it back to 1, bring it back to 3, it doesn't matter. But we know Konami like to be a little bit cautious with cards like this, so maybe trialing at 1 to start with will be enough. But I think it's time to come back off the list. That's all my limited cards. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments what your opinion is. Am I crazy? Let me know. Now that the limited cards are out of the way, we need to talk about the semi-limited list. I don't have the same opinion of the semi-limited list as a lot of the Yugi-Tubers out there. A lot of them think that it's a troll part of the list, that it's no good, and we really shouldn't have any cards on there. Cards need to be at 3, 1, or none. But what I do like about the semi-limited list that is it does give limitations to the consistency of decks. And I think with the first example that I have here, it will explain what I believe the purpose of the semi-limited list is. The first card that I have going to 2 is Sky Striker Mobilize Engage. I think that it is a great card. The deck needs it to play, but engaging into engage and then into another engage is absolutely too busted to be in the game. We need to hit that consistency a little bit, but if we drop the card down to 1, it's going to be too hard to see and we're never going to get the card we need. It's a great starter card. It's a great card anytime in the game, but at 1, we wouldn't see it often enough for the Sky Striker strategy to be still playable. So moving into 2 bumps down or nerfs a bit of the consistency in the deck, but still makes the engine or the deck quite playable within its own archetype. And it does force Sky Striker players to put an extra card in their deck that they probably wouldn't be playing otherwise. The next card on the list has been on the limited list for a while. I think it's time it comes back to 2, and that is Speedroid Terratop. I do know that when Zodiacs were running around, and BAs were huge, Terratop was pretty popular. The Terratop Takatombo was a free Dante. So maybe it'll be a little bit broken coming back, but I think it's time. It'll be a free link 2 in the current format. Moving into the 2020 format, it's probably, maybe it's got potential to be a little bit broken, but bringing it back is going to make it playable. It's a wind archetype. I love Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon as well, and the Wind Witches can also use that kind of support too. So bring back Terratop to 2. The next one is Graph, Mellow Branch of the Burning Abyss. Again, I would like to see some Burning Abyss come back. I love that deck with a passion. I think it's too slow to compete in the meta too much at the moment. But with the new Master Rule, I think it's time that we start experimenting with some of these older decks and bringing them back to maybe increase that power level a little bit, so maybe they can be a little bit more competitive. In the January format, before the new rule comes out, I do think that giving a little bit of a buff to this Burning Abyss strategy will be quite good, but I don't think it's going to put it back up there in the tops of the premier events like YCSs and UDS events. The final card I have coming back to 2 is all about some Fiend support, Tour Guide of the Underworld. I don't want this to come back to 2 because of BA. I would like it to come back to 2 because of the Unchained archetype. I've been testing those a little bit. I like them, but they are a little bit slow in getting those Unchained monsters out. So being able to normal summon and then special normal summon a Tour Guide, special summon one of the Unchained cards is going to allow you to go into those link cards a little bit quicker, a little bit more consistently. That's what the deck needs to play properly. Terraforming. If we hit Mystic Mine, terraforming can come back to 2. Okay, it's as simple as that. Maybe not 3, but 2. It does buff the consistency a little bit for those field spell players that are at 1, like Spiral Resort, Trickstar Light Stage, and field spells of the like. The final card I have coming to the semi-limited list is simply Precautionary. I think it should come back to 3. It's about time. But again, Konami like to err on the side of caution. So let's go with 2 copies of Necros of Unicorn. They need something. Being able to shut off extra deck monster effects is quite powerful, but still quite easy to beat over. It's only 2300, is a level 4, and it's just that starting play that Necros need to hopefully introduce a little bit more playability to that strategy. It's still quite a powerful deck, but they don't have a lot of on-field presence in that first turn, and that's what Unicorn was so good at doing. So let's bring it back to 2 copies. And finally, the cards that are coming off the list altogether. This is my favorite part because I think we can also play around a little bit with what the new format looks like and how we want it to shape up. There are a few cards here, so please bear with me. I do want to know what your opinion is as well. Leave them in the comments down below. Like I said, I want to hear what you think. This should be a discussion video, so don't let me do all the talking. The first card coming back to 3 is Book of Moon. I don't know why it's not back at 3 already. It's a great card, it's disruptive, but it's still too slow to really do anything great in today's format. People aren't playing it at 1, I don't think they would play it at 3. Pantheism. Let's give it back to the Monarchs. Maybe we need to check domain of the Monarch, and maybe some other things need to be checked as well, but give them back their consistency card. Let people play the deck. Let them have Pantheism back at 3. Trickstar Light Stage. If we're going to nerf the Orcus deck like we are, I think it's okay for Light Stage to come back. Nightmare Mermaid is gone, out of the game, so let's get these Trickstar players back online. Having 3 copies of Light Stage is going to make the deck so much better, and it'll return it to a power level that might be playable in the meta, but whether it's going to be able to compete anymore or not, I guess that's something for time to tell. Next is Solemn Warning. Every other Solemn card is at 3. I don't understand why Warning hasn't come back yet. If you look at the good cards, Solemn Warning, Solemn Strike, and Solemn Judgment, that is 9 cards. Not many decks out there are going to be able to run all 9, but giving them the option to run combinations of each, I think is something that every Yu-Gi-Oh player would appreciate greatly. Solemn Warning is one of my favorites, and it does have that beautiful ultimate rare, and they all come in that beautiful ultimate rare, but in today's game there's just not enough space to run 9 copies of pretty much the same card. Counter Fairies, probably one deck that might, because the life points don't really matter with Guiding Ariadne on the field, but it's still quite restrictive in terms of how many life points a player is willing to give up for some simple summon negates or some effect negates. Ulti Cannahawk, Ritual Beast Ulti Cannahawk. Love the deck, it is great, but this is a tricky one because I do know that Ritual Beast first turns can take something like 15 or 20 minutes. No different to a Goki first turn, no different to an Orcus first turn sometimes as well. But we know that Ulti Cannahawk is a great looping card, and it does give some power back to a Ritual Beast deck. Once the new format comes into play, once we move into the new Master Rule, it's going to be so much easier for the Ritual Beast strategy to be great, and we all want to be able to play Ritual Beast Steeds like we used to. So please bring that one back to 3. I would love to be able to dig out my Ritual Beast deck once again. 1 for 1. 1 for 1 is one of those cards that gets overlooked on every single list in the TCG. We want to look at building up some playability for some of these decks that are new to the game, but they haven't quite hit that meta level yet. One example of that is Marincess. 1 for 1 is a great addition to a Marincess deck using Mandarin to summon out. It goes full combo with it, leaves resources left over for the following turn, and it allows you to set up a marbled rock with a field spell, a couple of equipped cards, and maybe even the trap negate in your hand as well. A card like 1-for-1 is going to be useful in so many decks that play the lower level monsters. So please, that's a card that we need to see back at 3. If we're going to hit Salamangreat Spinny, we know Gazelle's already at 1, and there's still a question mark on whether or not Salamangreat Foxy needs to be hit. I think if the next card comes back to 3, maybe Foxy needs to be addressed as well, but I would like to see Salamangreat Circle released from the list. I do know that it was just recently put on the list in the OCG, but if we can hit the 3 big playmakers, the 3 big starters in the Salamangreat deck in the likes of Gazelle, Spinny and Foxy, I think bringing Circle back to 3 won't be so bad. Again, I'd like the deck to stay playable, I'd like the deck to stay in the top tier, but I think we need to control the ability of some of those monsters to keep coming back or to keep recurring resources. Bringing back Salamangreat Circle though is going to give you access to other cards in your deck that might not be those 3. So bring back Circle. Reasoning to 3. Please, I'm an Infernoid player. If you know me, if you've played me, you know I love Infernoids. We got Monster Gate last list. It's time for Reasoning to come back. I don't see the problem in it. It's a free card, but there's still a chance that the graveyard's going to be full of spells, and the number that they do call will be in the graveyard as well. So I don't see a big drawback into allowing this card to come back to 3. The final card coming back to 3 is Metaverse. Basically for the same reason as Terraforming, except 3 copies of Metaverse is okay because trap cards we know are a little bit slower. It's forcing you to activate or add to hand in your opponent's turn, and there's always a chance that that's going to be ashed or negated in some other way. So Metaverse to 3 I don't think would be a big issue. Now, for the most controversial card on this list, I wholeheartedly believe that to start controlling some of these out of control decks, what we need to do in the TCG is to bring back Maxx. It's a card that lets your opponent think. It makes your opponent think about whether or not they're going to go all in after their opponent has dropped Maxx. Their opponent might draw answers to that, so they need to think hard about whether or not they're going to play the challenge and drop the board that they wanted to in the first place. I remember back when it was 3 and I was playing the Synchro Fusionist combo deck, the hand loop deck. I lost so many times due to the fact that my opponent dropped a Maxx. I thought I had it there, I didn't quite have enough, or I made a slight misplay, and the next turn my opponent absolutely decimated me with their fistful of cards. We know combo is going to stick around, we know that. Whether it's Thunder Dragon combo, Orcust combo, or some other new wave combo deck coming out. Bringing Maxx back to 3 is going to give the control players the opportunity to say, think about what you're doing. That's why we need Maxx back at 3. Let me know what you think about that last one. I want to hear your opinion on that, okay? Don't hit the thumbs down button just yet. Think about what I've said. Let me know your opinion. Of course, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. But this is my version of the January 2020 TCG ban list prediction. Thank you so much for staying for the entirety of the video. Here are the details for the giveaway. What you're going to win are not 1 but 2 packets of Yu-Gi-Oh! Dark Hex sleeves. They are released this year to the North American and EU regions. I'm going to give these to one lucky winner. Postage will be on me and I will post to anywhere in the world. You'll have to give me your address though. To win, what you need to do is you need to comment down below what you think should go on or come off of the ban list. You need to subscribe to the channel because I'm not going to choose a winner who's not watching all of my videos. And of course you need to give this video a big fat thumbs up. That's all you need to do. Of course, if you'd like, feel free to share the video all over your social media pages. The more followers, the better. The quicker we get to 100, the quicker we get to the next giveaway. Once again, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for the support. And don't forget to enter into the draw to win these awesome decks, awesome card sleeves. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.